The next series, or the next story in this series, takes place in a scene, or I use it both factual and fictitiously in many of my stories. It takes place in a little log cabin on a hill across from where I lived. The story is named Eli. There was a tenant farmer that lived on the hill in a pasture across from my house. He sharecropped my grandfather's land. He was extremely superstitious. He planted his garden according to the moon, would go home and start again if a black cat crossed his path. He wouldn't step on a crack in the sidewalk. I think you get the picture. All the kids enjoyed visiting him, as he was a storyteller extraordinaire. And when we were young, we put more faith in the stories that he told us than we did in the true things our parents told us. As we got older, he became the object of several pranks that took advantage of the simple beliefs that he held as truths. The high school was building a new track, and it was being covered with a finely crushed red substance. It was almost like sand. I think they called it Red Dog track, but it was the latest and greatest thing at the time. We hoisted a 5-gallon bucket of this material, and when Eli was not home, we sprinkled it all around his porch and around his house. We drew some signs of no real meaning in the dust that was left. That particular evening, Eli stayed out late drinking. Since he had no electricity, he did not notice the red dust when he came home late at night, early in the morning. The next morning, it was apparent that he discovered the material, since we saw that he'd hitched his mule to a slide, loaded all of his few possessions on it, and was headed down the road. He left his crop in the field, and half of that crop belonged to my grandfather. My grandfather heard he was gone and drove down the road to entice him to come back. By this time, Eli was about a mile from home. He explained that some evil spirit had visited him in the night and he had to leave. After much persuading, my grandfather tied the mule to a tree and drove Eli back home. He told Eli to wait at the house while he went to see someone. Eli would have no part of that, so when my grandfather drove into our yard, Eli was as close to him as a shadow. "Johnny, come here." I minded my grandfather. He asked if I knew anything about the stuff left on Eli's porch. I did not lie. I never lied to him. All three of us left with a broom and a shovel. I was let out at the house to clean up while my grandfather drove Eli to retrieve his mule and belongings. We received no real punishment for the prank, but we were not allowed to visit Eli anymore. But we did, one more time. It was about 2 years later. We caught some carpenter bees and put them in a jar. We then lightly sprayed them with silver spray paint. We discovered that they could fly for about 5 or 10 minutes before they died or the paint dried on their wings. We caught some more and headed to Eli's house. Just out of sight, we sprayed the bees and then called Eli to come out just as we released them. He had the same fear on his face that he had the time we put the red powder on the porch. He mumbled some Bible scripture about entertaining angels unaware, and angels had silver wings. He then ran inside and bolted the door. I'm told he went to church that Sunday and never missed church again. He became a faithful member until his death, which was about a year later. I suppose that somehow I contributed to Eli's salvation, and something good did come out of our childish prank.